Back from the dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mickey C and welcome to another League of Legends video, and today I want to talk about how Korean challengers or high elo players build Aurelion Sol. So first of all, I'll be focusing on 3 players. One's in Challenger, rank 46, and the other 2 are in Masters, rank around 400 and 600. I'll link their op.ggs in the description if you want to go check them out for yourselves. So first of all 3 of them play Aurelion Sol in the mid lane. That's pretty standard. That's where you want to be playing the champion. And now we'll talk about summoner spells. So all 3 of them take Flash. That's pretty standard. You want to take Flash on Aurelion Sol. You don't want to take anything else such as Ghost or any sort of crazy summoner spell. You want to take Flash. That's the first summoner spell you want to take. But all 3 of them go with a different other summoner spell. So first of all, we'll talk about the Challenger. He likes to take Heal. For the most part, in every single matchup he'll take Heal. The other 2 summoner spells he would take is Barrier. Now he'll take Barrier against champions such as LeBlanc, Zed, and Annie, who have a lot of high burst damage. He would take Barrier against those champions. Then the other summoner spell he'll take is Cleanse, and he seems to only take Cleanse against Fizz for the most part, or if the enemy jungler is someone like a Rammus or a Fiddlesticks, so you can cleanse Fiddlesticks' Fear or Rammus's Taunt. Then moving on to the second player, he would like to take Ignite. So just shows they have different playstyles. So he likes to be a bit more aggressive early on, and he likes to have kill pressure on his enemy laner and try and get an early kill so he can snowball the mid lane and in the game from there. Then the third player, he would like to take TP. So that means he has once again another different playstyle. He likes the split push playstyle, so you can farm in the outer lanes during the mid game and the late game, and then TP into team fights. And so that just shows all 3 different players have different sort of playstyles. If I was to recommend which summoner spells to take for new players, I would go with the more defensive summoner spells such as Flash, Heal, or Flash Barrier, like the Challenger player would take. Now moving on to the items. So there's very similar item builds, but there are slight differences as well, so we'll talk about that. First of all, they all start with the same starting item in every single matchup, so that is Corrupting Potion, and then the yellow trinket, and then obviously they'll upgrade to the blue trinket on their either second or third back, something like that. So their build order. So most common build order is at around 3 minutes or 4 minutes they'll back and look to get the Dark Seal. If they've got around 350 gold, if they've got 650 gold or 700 gold, they will look to get the Dark Seal and tier 1 boots. But they'll always look to get tier 1 boots and the Dark Seal prior to building their Rod of Ages. So after they get those 2 items, they will start building into Rod of Ages or Hextech GLP 800. So the 2 of the players, they will always go with Rod of Ages, but the other player, he likes Hextech GLP 800. So they give very similar stats. So 300 health, 400 mana, and 80 ability power on the GLP 800. Then Rod of Ages gives you 300 health, 300 mana, and 60 ability power, but it also scales. And the Hextech GLP 800 has that active, which fires icy bolts that deal magic damage and slow the enemy champions. So they're very similar items in terms of their core stats, but I would recommend Rod of Ages. Most people who play Aurelion Sol would rush Rod of Ages, just because it appears to me to be a better item, because it's 400 gold cheaper, it scales as well, and Rod of Ages right now is a really good item. But if you want to try out Hextech GLP 800, go ahead. If you want to try that out on Aurelion Sol, it's definitely worth trying out and see which one of the 2 you prefer. But right now I think Rod of Ages is much better. Just another thing to note is you don't want to get both of these items. You have to choose between the one. You definitely don't want to get both. You then upgrade your boots to Boots of Swiftness, and that's what all 3 of these players do, and then they get the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. So that's pretty much your core build. Then after that there are a few options, but most of the time they would get a Void Staff. Now one of the players who actually builds the Hextech GLP 800, he likes getting a Liandry's Torment as his 3rd item. Once again, it's not recommended because it's once again a very expensive item. I personally think either Void Staff or Abyssal Scepter would be much better as a third item because it's cheaper, but he likes to get Liandry's Torment for some reason. I guess it synergizes well with Rylai's Crystal Scepter, so you can definitely try that out for yourself. Other items they like to get is obviously Luden's Echo, Zhonya's Hourglass, especially against champions such as Zed or heavy AD comps, and then as a final item, Rabadon's Deathcap is definitely a viable option. It's pretty expensive, so you only really want to get it as a final item. And finally, they would occasionally get Medjai's. It's a really fun item, and if you think you're a much better player, you can go with this item and try and snowball the game with this item. Then finally, after their full build, they would often look to upgrade their Boots of Swiftness into Sorcerer's Shoes, and they would obviously get the Elixir of Sorcery, and all the other elixirs are not really good on Aurelion Sol, so I highly recommend this elixir. So now let's talk about their skill order. So all three players go with the same skill order, and pretty much most Aurelion Sol players would go with the skill order, and that is start W, then Q, then E. You want to max your W first, then your Q, and then your E, and then your ultimate whenever you can. Now moving on to Runes and Mastery. So we'll talk about Masteries first. So there's pretty much two Mastery pages. One has emphasis on Storm Raider's Surge, and the other one has emphasis on Thunderlord's Decree. For the most part, they would go with Storm Raider's Surge. They much prefer that, but the other option is obviously Thunderlord's Decree. They're both decent masteries on them. I really like the sound of Storm Raider's Surge, and it does sound really good on Aurelion Sol. So let's just quickly read it. So dealing 30% of the champion's max health within 2.5 seconds grants you 40% movement speed and 75% slow resistance for 3 seconds. And so that sounds really good to me on Aurelion Sol. So we'll just go through the whole mastery page. So we've got 12 points in ferocity and 18 points in cunning. So this is more or less the same. All three players go with more or less the same page when they go for the Storm Raider Surge. So here we go. We got 5 points in sorcery, 1 point in feast, and then they go for either vampirism or natural talent, or a mixture of the two like this. So 2 points in vampirism, 3 points in natural talent, and then the 1 point in oppressor. Occasionally they'll go with bounty hunter, but for the most part it will be oppressor. And then for the 18 points in cunning, we've got 5 points in savagery. Occasionally you'll get the 5 points in wanderer, so you can, I guess if you're really struggling with last hitting, I would definitely recommend going with savagery. But if you're fine with last hitting, you can go with the 5 points in a wanderer. And then the 1 point in runic affinity, merciless, dangerous game, 5 points in precision, and then Storm Raider Surge. So now we'll talk about the other mastery page. So here's the other mastery page, which has emphasis on the Thunderlord's Decree, like I said. So it's pretty similar. There are a few differences here and there, so let's talk about it. So first of all, the 12 points in ferocity, got the 5 points in sorcery, and then the 1 point in exposed weakness instead of feast. So once again, a slight difference there. This guy likes to go with vampirism instead of natural talent, and then as I said, he prefers the bounty hunter over the oppressor. And then for the 18 points in cunning, we've got 5 points in wanderer, then the 1 point in assassin. So this is the player that prefers TP over the other summoner spells, so that's why he would go with something like assassin, because he'd be split pushing a lot, so that makes sense. And then merciless, dangerous game, precision, and then obviously the Thunderlord's Decree. So now let's talk about runes. So all three of them go for a pretty similar rune page, and this is the standard rune page that they will go. So there's one other rune page that I did see, and we'll go into that a bit later, but this is the standard one. So plus 7.8 magic penetration, plus 12.1 magic resist, scaling health, which is yellows, to level 18, and then the 4.5% movement speed. So now we'll talk about the other rune page. So here's the other rune page that I occasionally do see from these players, and that's the plus 7.8 magic penetration, then the scaling ability power at level 18, the 9 points in armor, and then the 4.5% movement speed. So that covers everything in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, leave a like. If you want to see more of these types of videos, obviously leave a like I just said, and don't forget to subscribe.